I'm Frank de Jong, professor at the Open University on responsive learning and knowledge creation. I'm also a professor at Eres Applied University, and that's my subject also, knowledge construction and ecological thinking. I'm asked for this course to tell something about principle-based knowledge construction, and knowledge construction is for me related very strongly to knowledge building. In several articles and presentations, Marleen Skademali and Carl Berruiters, the founders of the knowledge building approach, has formulated such principles. The first time in the 2002 article by Marleen Skademali, which was titled Collective Cognitive Responsibility for the Advancement of Knowledge. And in that article, she actually made a distinction between social cognitive and technological dynamics of those principles. I will go through those principles now, but I only will mention and say something about the social cognitive dynamics as Marleen was written down in this article. Okay, about the principles. The first principle is called real ideas, authentic problems. Knowledge building arises from efforts to understand the world. Ideas produced or appropriated are as real as things touched and felt. Problems are ones that learners really care about, usually very different from textbooks, problems, puzzles, quizzes, like a lot of assessments are. So actually, it is about real ideas, real authentic problems, and what the learners really concerns. Then I come to the second principle, and that's very central in the design-based collaborative learning and knowledge construction. It's improvable ideas. All ideas are treated as improvable. Participants work continuously to improve the quality, coherence and the utility of ideas. Ideas can be questions, it can be your own theory, your opinion, it can even be your curiosity. So it's, by the term idea, you have to think very more broadly. For such work to prosper, the culture must be one of a psychological safety, so that people feel safe in taking risk, revealing ignorancy, voicing half-baked notions, giving and receiving criticism. This is very important, of course. Idea improvement involves a set of commitments that distinguish it from other types of discourses. I refer to Berruiter in 1949 and 2002. It's a commitment to progress, something that does not characterize a dinner party conversation or discussions devoted to sharing information and venting opinions. Idea improvement is a commitment to seek common understanding rather than merely agreement, which is not characteristic of political and policy discourses, for instance. Idea improvement is a commitment to expand the base of accepted facts, whereas in court trials and debates, attacking the factual claims of opponents is common. So when is actually an idea improved? An idea is improved when it, for instance, explains more facts, when it excludes more false statements, when it connects to more other explanations, when it explains things in more detail, when its part of the explanation interlocks so that it becomes increasingly difficult to modify parts without altering the whole. It's able more clearly to identify what it fails to explain. The idea is improved when it generates better predictions. And it's also improved if it explains how identified causal factors work, rather than only identifying and quantifying their effects. And in my sense, this is actually what I heard said Marleen in the last Knowledge Building Summer Institute in 2018. And if I take this idea improvement more in a responsive context, then I think that also the idea is improved when it contributes to the public good, to the wisdom of the community, and that we also know why this idea is better and it's a better contribution than an alternative idea. And I think in the world and society we're living now, with a lot of ecological crisis, I think the idea is also better if we know and can argument that it's better in relationship to planet, people, and prosperity. So this is all about idea improvement. That's a lot, but it's a very central principle in knowledge construction. Another idea is it's about idea diversity. I already called it as multivocality. So the idea diversity is essential to the development of knowledge advancement, just as biodiversity is essential to the success of an ecosystem. To understand an idea is to understand the ideas that surround it, including those that stand in contrast to it. Idea diversity creates a rich environment for ideas to evolve into new and more refined forms. And then actually we are coming to a principle which is also very central in the process, that it's the rising above. Creative knowledge building entails working toward more inclusive principles and higher level formulations of problems. It means learning to work with diversity, complexity, and messiness, and out of that achieving new synthesis. By moving to a higher plane of understanding of knowledge builders, transcend trivialities and oversimplifications, and moving beyond current practice and insights. And then I already mentioned the epistemic agency. Epistemic agency is setting participants for their ideas and negotiate a fit between personal ideas and ideas of others, using contrast to spark and sustain knowledge advancements rather than depending on others to chart that courses for them. It's dealing with the problems of goals, motivation, evaluation, and long-range planning that are normally left to teachers or managers. So it actually is saying that a student has ownerships about what he's actually going to study in a particular topic or a subject. Within the framework, of course, of a course. But it's the ownership of the students in which he's going into the depth. And that, of course, together with others. Because another principle is community knowledge, collective responsibility. The knowledge construction is also about contributing to shared top-level goals of the organizations that are prized and rewarded as much as an individual achievement. Team members produce ideas of value to others and share responsibilities for the overall advancement of the knowledge in the community. In that sense, it's very important that there's also a principle like democratizing knowledge. Actually, it means it doesn't matter where the knowledge is coming from. All insights and understandings are important. All participants are legitimated contributors to the shared goals of the community. All take pride in knowledge advances achieved by the group. The diversity and divisional differences represented in any organization do not lead to separations along knowledge, have or have not, or innovator or non-innovator lines. All are empowered to engage in the knowledge innovation. And then a principle which I find very difficult is symmetric knowledge advancement. This principle is actually about the expertise that is distributed within and between communities. It's the symmetry in knowledge achievement a symmetry in knowledge advancement, resulting from knowledge exchange and from the fact that the giving knowledge is to get knowledge. Then the pervasive knowledge building. This principle means that knowledge building is not confined to particular occasions or subject, but it pervades mental life, in and out school. And then a principle we already mentioned several times is the constructive use of authoritative sources. To know a discipline is to be in touch with the present state and growing edge of knowledge in the field. This requires respect and understanding of authoritative sources combined with a critical stance toward them. But authoritative sources can be articles, but can also be interviews with experts, or it can also be experience from the field. And then another central point of the knowledge construction is the knowledge building discourse. The discourse of the knowledge building communities results in more than only sharing of knowledge. That's what we all very easily see in a lot of discussion platforms. But the discourse is going beyond. It's the knowledge itself. It's also grounding what you are talking about. What does it mean when you are talking about learning, or when I am talking about learning? We're using the same words, but do we mean the same thing? We need a process of grounding what we actually mean in this community, for instance, about learning. So it is the knowledge itself that refined, transformed to this discursive practice of the community. Practice that have the advancements of knowledge as their explicitly goal. And then the last principle, which is also in current times, I think a very challenging one, is the embedded and transformative assessment. The assessment is actually part of the effort to advance knowledge. It is used to identify problems as the work proceeds, and it is embedded in the day-to-day working of the organization. So that is completely different than a post-test which we know in education. The community engages in its own internal assessment, which is both more fine-tuned and rigorous than external assessment. And it serves to ensure that the community's work will exceed the expectation of the external assessors. Why I find this very challenging in the current time is because of the upcoming importance of learning analytics. Learning analytics, which are nowadays most on frequency and calculation, but there are also learning analytics in development which are more semantically based. And these learning analytics could take kind of a function in this embedded assessment and give feedback and feed forward to the process of this discourse. And it could help the discourse and the participant in the discourse to really come to a knowledge building process. So for some of the principles, and I will go a bit more talking about these principles because these were the principles as were formulated by Scott Amelia in 2002.